When a child feels a lot of anxiety, we want to do 3 things. 1. Guide them safely into their worst case scenario. 2. Allowing them to express their fears without judgment. 3. Find an alternative possible scenario when it comes to future situations. So if your kid is suffering with anxiety either during the day or finding it difficult to fall asleep, this one's for you. Hi everyone, thank you again so much for tuning into my channel and to this video today. I'm Lilac and I upload weekly, so if you're interested in the content, feel free to subscribe to the channel below. My stepdaughter, bless her soul, tends to get stuck in endless cycles of thoughts, especially right before bedtime. Now, for many kids, bedtime is a quiet time when you get to relax and reflect on your day. And for kids that have quite a bit of anxiety, this is a tricky time when the more nagging thoughts that they're trying to avoid for the rest of the day start creeping in. But in general, these are great tips for any other time of the day. Now, if you know anxiety, those disturbing thoughts and fears, they tend to go in circles where we run a scenario over and over again in our head, and it's almost like we're psyching ourselves out and become more and more worried. Now, a key thing to remember is that in any scenario of anxiety, we are either worried about the future or the past, meaning we're concerned about the unknown ahead, something that may or may not happen, or we are overthinking something that had happened before and that we struggle to deal with its consequences, or the way we feel about it now. And to each of those aspects, there are also 2 layers: the physical layer of the actual scenario of what happened, and the emotional aspect of the fear of having to deal with how we feel about it now or how we may feel about it. Now, the future doesn't exist yet and the past no longer exists. So essentially, we are afraid of something that doesn't exist. And the way we can deal with it is to pull those scenarios into the present moment and, using our imagination, really look at them, okay? And then deal with them in the now. So a great way to break anxiety down, both on the physical and emotional layers, is to do a quick exercise where we safely lead our child into visiting their worst case scenario and acknowledging both the emotions that arise and the way that they can actually deal with the scenario. So let's jump right into an example for this exercise that you can try at home with your kid. Starting with addressing the emotional level. Ask your child, what's on your mind? What are you worried about? And then the kids will say, oh, I'm worried about what if this and this happens. Reaffirm their emotions by saying, yeah, that must be worrying. Okay, and then ask, let's say that happened, that it actually happened. What would happen then? And let them describe the situation if that thing ever actually happened. And then ask them, okay, then let's say that happened too. What worries you now after it happened? And they will describe what worries them, and so on and so forth. So as soon as they mention this worries me, then say, okay, now let's imagine that actually happened. Say, what do you do now? Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Okay, yeah, that could be really worrying. What's the scariest thing about being worried about that happening? So try to carefully guide them by reaffirming how they feel, saying it's okay to feel that way, and then leading them with the next question, say, what happens if that happens? So essentially, you are safely leading them into that terrifying scenario that they're really trying to avoid or psych out in their head what they're going to do if it happened. Now, it's important to remember that fears don't always make sense. Even if what they're saying doesn't make any sense, we just take a deep breath and listen. And once they finish describing everything they're afraid of, without judgment, we ask them to breathe those fears in. So let's just breathe it in, hold the breath for a few seconds, and just release them out so that they're more relaxed. And try to do this deep breath, holding and releasing for every single emotion. So let's say, oh yeah, you're afraid. Okay, let's just take that fear in. Hold that fear for a few seconds and then completely let go of the fear. Just feel how it's leaving your body. And do the same thing for anxiety, embarrassment, helplessness, or I don't know what to do. For all these emotions that come up one by one, breathe them in and then release them out. And after we've managed to isolate the worst case scenario under all of that, I've asked my daughter to consider whether there is anything in this world that only has one side or one angle. Try to think of anything. And then she tries to find something, but then we realize together that there isn't such a thing because reality is 3D. So in fact, every single thing, whether it's a physical object, liquid, gas, molecules, thoughts, or perspectives, Everything around us has several dimensions and angles. And I explained to her how the same goes for situations in life. They are never one-sided. So after we've done this and they kind of realize the point of looking for other points of view, the next step you take will be based on whether their worst case scenario is something that happened in the past or might happen in the future. If after asking all the questions, their worst case scenario is something that already happened, then the next step you're going to take is to try to enable the child to find the flip side of that same scenario. For example, if they can only see the negative about what happened, ask them to close their eyes and imagine themselves taking a step back from the situation visually, in the same way that they would take a physical step back from an object. Walk around the situation. So imagine yourself walking around it and looking at it or at what happened from different angles. Then ask them, what could be positive about that situation? What other points of view are you able to find? And if they close their eyes and they're imagining it, they will come to other perspectives. And even if they struggle in finding anything positive, remember that there's always an angle from which we can learn and grow. For example, my kid was saying, well, I'm just feeling stressed and I can't change that. So what's positive about feeling stressed? So I said, okay, is this the only time in your life where you'll feel stressed ever? And she said, probably not. I said, is it possible that there will be other occasions in your life where you may feel stressed and not know what to do about it? She said, yes. So I said, is it possible that feeling stressed now and now learning the tools to work with it will give you some tools to manage future stress? So the next time you feel it, you'll actually know what to do about it. And she figured out that that's true. And she said, yeah, probably. And so if the child struggles to figure out those points out by themselves, try mirroring it to them. Give them some ideas to direct their path into a more positive point of view. Now, the second option is if that worst case scenario you've reached is actually something that they're worried might happen in the future. So for example, your kid says, oh, the first day of school really scares me because, this and that can go wrong. So first mirror the emotions so they can feel like they're not alone. Say, yeah, you don't know who you're going to meet and are your friends going to be there? You don't really know what room to go to. Yeah, I totally understand. So they already feel like it's okay to feel how they're feeling and they're not alone in it. And you're not trying to go, oh, just get on with it. So now that they know that you're there with them, ask them to close their eyes and play that scene of walking into school in their head and start to describe in detail everything that's going on and all the scary situations that they're envisioning, how it makes them feel, and what negative emotions it brings up, just like a film. And once they finish describing everything they're afraid of, without judgment, we ask them to breathe those fears in. So let's just breathe it in, holding and releasing for every single emotion. And once you finish doing that for all those negative emotions, ask them to revisit the scenario and imagine other ways in which the same scenario can roll out. For example, if they imagine coming into school and people ignoring them or not being nice to them, ask them whether there's like a parallel universe where the scenario might happen that they are walking into school and a few really nice kids walk over and start talking to them. And suddenly they start chit-chatting and completely forget about the stress that they had. Just allow them to find other positive rollouts to that same scenario film that they had in their head. And remind them that just like the negative scenario might roll out, there's a chance for the positive scenario to roll out because they don't actually know what's going to happen and we don't know either. So all the options are still open. Anything can happen and we want to consider all of them and not just pinpoint one of them and stick to that. Just to recap, when a child feels a lot of anxiety, we want to do 3 things. 1, guide them safely into their worst case scenario. 2, allowing them to express their fears without judgment or without trying to fix it, simply by listening, acknowledging, breathing them in, releasing them out. 3, revisiting their worst case scenario and then encouraging them to either find the flip side, as in a positive in something that's already happened, or find an alternative possible scenario when it comes to future situations that haven't happened yet. And that's it. Try it out at home. I hope this is helpful. Do it with your kid when they're feeling anxiety, whether in the day or just before they go to sleep. And let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions, if it helped at all, and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you so much again for tuning in and listening. Make sure to like the video if you liked it, and of course subscribe to the channel below for all the notifications about new videos. I'll see you again soon.